Good afternoon, everyone. I must say, I'm so thrilled to see all of you here in support of women's health. This is an area that has, yes, this is an area that has been so overlooked. If you think back, it wasn't until 1993, and for many of us, that seems like yesterday, that 1993, that women were not routinely, until 1993, women were not routinely included in clinical trials. We still only get about 1 to 2% of all the R&D money that goes to healthcare. And so today, we are with two women innovators who are solving important problems for women's health. And I am so pleased to introduce them to you. So we're going to start going down the road, and they actually have some really interesting solutions that they're going to share with you. By the way, Sally Frank, Global Lead for Health and Life Sciences at Microsoft for Startups. And I have with us Laura and Gloria, and they're going to share. We're going to start off with a little tour of what they do and their companies. So is it Laura that goes first?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember the order of the slides. Yes.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Kolb, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Elidah, and we have a product called Elitone. And what Elitone does is it treats incontinence for women. So the way this started was I had very large babies. I had a 9.5-pound baby girl and then 13 pounds of twins.
Wow.
And I started to leak urine after, when you're exercising or when you're sneezing. And I started to look into the solutions, and for one thing, I found what a large problem it is. 1 out of 3 women over the age of 30 has this issue. 1 out of 2 women over the age of 50. But the solutions were lacking in that you're told to do these Kegel exercises to strengthen your pelvic floor, which is hard to do correctly and sufficiently. And then there's pelvic mesh surgery, which has 100,000 lawsuits. Big gap in between. So that's when we decided that I'm looking to treat myself, and there's got to be a better solution for women. Everything I saw in between in that gap was vaginal, meaning that women have to lock themselves in the bedroom, flat on their back for 20 minutes with a vaginal device. And I'm like, the busy moms don't have time for this, and it's a bit icky. So we came up with a completely external treatment for women, and one of the best things is it's very small. Actually, it's about the size of a matchbox. And she would place it on her perineal area just like a bed, very flexible and comfortable. But one of the best things is it's wearable. So she can put it under clothes, walk around the house. It doesn't take up her time. It's very discreet. And what it is doing is essentially doing that work, doing the Kegel exercises for her, but we say longer and stronger than she could on her own. And we've done many clinical studies, and these women in clinical studies were incontinent on average for 11 years. That's how long they weren't treated. And within 6 weeks of wearing this for 20 minutes a day, 95% of women improved to over 70% in their bladder leakage. And this is for stress incontinence, but we also have a second product that calms overactive bladder so that they don't need the really bad medications. So thank you.
Excellent. Gloria.
Hi, my name is Laura Yecies, and I'm the CEO of Osteoboost Health. And we are working to solve the huge problem of osteopenia and osteoporosis. So 60 million Americans have low bone density. Half of all women in their lifetime will fracture due to low bone density. So hip fractures are very serious and can be deadly. 20 to 30% of people don't survive a year after a hip fracture. And vertebral compression fractures are the most common osteoporotic fracture. So if we think about, our mental image of older women, oftentimes we think of them as little and hunched over. Well, they didn't start out little and hunched over. Those are vertebral compression fractures at work. And as you can imagine, it's very painful. There are drugs to improve bone density, but they're only to treat osteoporosis. They're not used as an early intervention for osteopenia because of side effects, and they can only be used for a limited duration. And so we wanted to develop a device, something with no serious adverse effects that could be used early on as a prevention. And that's Osteoboost. We received FDA approval last year. We are the only non-drug prescription treatment that has been approved by the FDA for bone density. We got a de novo clearance. We were considered a breakthrough device by the FDA. So the only non-drug treatment and the only treatment that's been specifically indicated for osteopenia. We launched in May. We've sold thousands of devices. Patients find it very comfortable and easy to use. You can see the picture. This is an example. So it's precision vibration applied to the lumbar spine, improving bone density in the hips and spine. We did a gold standard randomized controlled trial, which showed an 85% reduction in bone loss. And that's how we got the FDA approval. This is a close-up of the device, and you can see the device applies vibration to that sacrum area, and the vibration extends to the hip and lumbar spine. You wear the device 30 minutes a day. It feels like a gentle massage, and you can wear it while you're doing daily activities like walking or doing chores in the home. And that's Osteoboost. Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing that, and more importantly, thank you both for moving the needle, so to speak, on women's health in two areas that are really critical. You talked a little bit about clinical validation and your de novo status and some of the work that you've done. Can you dive into that a little bit more and talk specifically around the changes that you've seen in patients that have used it, and I guess I just want to get more into that research area.
Sure. I'll start. So, we had a decision when we started the company. Do we want to go down sort of this medical device FDA route, or should we be a wellness device? I mean, you can buy vibration belts on Amazon, vibration platforms to stand on, but those companies cannot make medical claims to treat a disease.
Right.
And frankly, I didn't really want to work on something if I didn't know for sure that it was really working for patients. And so I want to spend my life on something that's going to be effective.
Right.
I want people to spend their time and money on something that's going to be effective. And so we were fortunate to get an NIH grant, which allowed us to do a placebo-controlled study. So 126 patients. The study was at University of Nebraska Medical Center. Half of the patients got the active device. The other half got a sham device, which gave like staticky sounds. So they were well blinded. And what we showed is that with very good statistical significance, we reduced bone loss by 85%, and about 30% of patients gained bone. And now that we have the device in market, we are planning to ask patients to continue to contribute their results with us so that we can get more data.
Yeah, super.
So our product uses electrical stimulation, so we had no choice. We had to go get FDA approval. And we did multiple clinical studies and was funded by the National Science Foundation and NIH and DOD as well. So it was very important. Unfortunately, we are put often in a category of Kegel trainers that we're competing against some devices that have no clinical claims,
right.
No FDA approval. And unfortunately, a lot of times the consumer doesn't know the difference. But it was very important to us.
Yeah, and so just digging into that a little bit. So is a part of your go-to-market strategy kind of that education around? Because you have the same thing, Gloria, where there's kind of commercial off-the-shelf, no validation type of solutions versus yours, which is very science-focused and supported. So is that part of kind of the messaging that you tell when you're trying to get this out to the public?
Yes, definitely. A lot of education, but also we have to be careful with our words.
Yes.
So that we don't scare consumers or make it too clinical sounding. We were fortunate to get both RX indication as well as over-the-counter, which was very helpful because we launched right before COVID. So we needed to reach the consumers. But now consumers are a great advocate learning about our device and then taking it to their clinician as well.
Great. Go ahead.
Comment. So there have been vibration platforms, whole body vibration platforms that have made a marketing push around bone density, and they don't have great data, and they were not able to get FDA approval. So, I never talk about competitive products specifically in our marketing, but we do point out that we're the only device that had data at the level that allowed us to get that approval.
Great. So taking kind of a tip from the AgeTech Collaborative, both of your solutions have value for older people, both you talked about pregnancy, but also as you get older, those muscles kind of atrophy. Is there anything specific to that group that you want to share regarding how you're going to market, what you're finding with patients that are your consumers that are using them, anything along those lines with kind of the older segment?
So osteoporosis, the interesting thing is, the fractures typically happen in a senior population. So, risk fractures tend to happen to women in their 50s and 60s, vertebral compression fractures in the 60s and 70s and beyond, and hip fractures in the 80s. So this is definitely a problem for seniors, and those fractures, really can impair people's mobility. If you survive a year after a hip fracture, there's a good chance that, you won't be able to walk or you'll lose independence. And so it's a very important issue for quality of life for seniors to maintain their mobility. Now, the tricky thing is because it's a chronic condition, there'll be a better impact if you start the intervention earlier on as soon as you're diagnosed. But it's never too late.
True. Yes.
I think everything we've done has been with the seniors in mind. Our incontinence is so broad, but one of our key messages, and early on we had to interview hundreds and hundreds of people to understand, we designed everything to be easy. A lot of seniors think, I don't know if I can do it well, or I don't know if I can do it correctly. They doubt themselves on technology. And so we just, we designed it with only 2 buttons. You pretty much just increase the intensity with one button, and then you let it go, and then it just runs by itself. And so the message that we've been trying to get out is just, it's super easy. You can't mess up.
Yeah. Ease of use. Although it's interesting, we do have a companion app, and I had a bunch of people say, oh, seniors don't want to use apps. Well, some people don't, but many people do, especially post-COVID. And, the apps help them use the device. It reminds them they get other benefits. So, but yeah, and one of the things that's interesting about our product, people will say, well, do you change the intensity, or how do you adjust the intensity? Does the doctor have to do it? The product actually does it itself. So it has a pressure sensor, there's an accelerometer over the hip bone, and so it basically automatically adjusts to each patient for each session.
Great. How do you overcome the stigma, if you will, that, I'm so old, but I don't really want to think of myself as having osteoporosis, and I'm not going to use the device, or I'm just going to wear, pads and I'll just leak a little bit. How do you get people to really accept that they're having this issue and then want to correct it with your technology?
The issue we have is not stigma with being old. It's more the stigma of being embarrassing problem.
Well, yes, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to tell them it's a very common problem. 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 2 women over the age of 50. And so there's no shame in that, but, get treated early, don't do nothing. But the message that we give out is more aspirational. Think of what you can do when you are, I won't say cured, but when you don't have this issue, you can go hiking, you could go traveling, you can, see do all the things that you love to do, which a lot of women stop when they have incontinence.
Sure.
So that's usually our message.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the things that we have never done, and I don't plan to do, is fear marketing, right? Oh, you might break, or this might happen. Because women don't have enough of that, right? Once they get that osteoporosis diagnosis. And so we really want to inspire them to have that confidence in their independence. If your bones are stronger, then you can, give your grandchild a piggyback ride, right? If you're told that your bones are really weak, you may not be willing to do that. And frankly, the numbers are, most women, the average American woman gets osteopenia at 58. Well, I mean, I'm 62, so 58 is not, it's definitely not old. So, this is a midlife problem.
Yeah.
And frankly, we start losing bone density in our 30s.
Yeah.
And so, it's important to intervene as early as possible. And that's how you can maintain that mobility.
So I'd also like you to comment as we talk about stigmas and all of that. I think the factor that both of these solutions are used at home, in what could be very private time or just with your family or whatever, I think also says a lot about not only the people who would use them, but the fact that you've designed them in a way that they're not, out there as far as, there's a very small pack on the back. This is an internal kind of device. Like, there's nothing outwardly that shows it. Plus that you have this hospital at home almost type of thing going on here. Have you gotten feedback about all of that?
I think if the effectiveness of your intervention is tied to it being used regularly, right? So our device needs to be used regularly. I assume the efficacy of also. Well, then it doesn't make sense that they have to go to the PT or the doctor to do it.
Right.
So just by definition, for efficacy, you want it to be done at home. And people would rather be at home, right? That's the more natural place to do it. Now, we hope that people will be willing to, wear their device out and show it to friends. We tried to make it not so medical feeling, but probably they're mostly using it while they're doing chores at home. We do have a lot of dog walkers.
Yes.
They do tell us about they wear it walking the dog.
So incontinence is such an embarrassing problem that 2/3 of women don't even talk to their doctors. So we needed it to be a solution that they could do at home, because they won't even discuss with some of the medical professionals. And then often the first line of treatment that a doctor will tell you to do is pelvic floor physical therapy, which is very invasive. And, I think only 14% will actually go and finish their treatment. So, but
if they can even get an appointment.
If they can get an appointment, yes. So, it's very important to have it at home. Also, a lot of there are some doctor office treatments, but they spend $2,000 to, sit on a chair to get stimulation. They have to repeat that in 6 months. So there's cost effectiveness, comes into play too.
Oh, that's an excellent point. So I'd like to turn the topic around a little bit. You're both female founders, which is not an easy thing, even if you're in women's health and all of that. Are there any kind of seminal moments where you kind of went from, yes, I'm going to do this, to, oh my gosh, this is so hard, to, I'm going to do it anyway? I'd love to hear a little bit more about the origin stories. And you talked a little bit about, Gloria, you talked a little bit about how it was a personal thing for you. Mm-hmm. But that kind of that kernel of, I'm gonna be the one that leads the way to fix this. And I'd love to hear from both of you on that.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think we have very similar stories in that we were both federally funded. So the government understands what a big issue this is and the eventual cost to the healthcare system.
And it's not dilutive, which is also very nice.
Which is awesome. Sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, was there ever a time that you said, I just can't do this, and then you just said, I have to do it?
I knew I wanted to do it because I looked at the size of the market and what a big gap there was.
Yeah.
I think what could have stopped me, though, is in all those investor presentations where I would be pitching to 50 men, and even though I'm saying 1 out of 3 women, 1 out of 3, they're like, no, I've never heard of this as an issue. It must not be an issue. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we have to do something. But I think one of the things that really kept us going is those first emails that start coming in, which are just so thankful. Oh my gosh, my life has been transformed. Thank you so much for creating this device. Even an email that said, thank you for making over the counter so I could just buy it.
Yeah.
Those are what keep us going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, growing up, I'm the black sheep of the family. Everyone in my family is a doctor. Both my parents, all of my siblings, now 2 of my children, and cousins. And if they weren't doctors, they were dentists or psychologists. And so I was this, black sheep business person. And then after a while, I wanted to get into healthcare. And so I was working in a healthcare startup, and I was approached by this company. And my summer jobs when I was in college, my dad was medical director of a nursing home, I worked in this nursing home. And I learned, how do you end up in a nursing home? Well, it's pretty much cognitive issues or you break your hip. And, my mother has osteoporosis. My grandmother had osteoporosis. And as I looked at the treatments, I realized this is as big a problem as, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, but we've had almost no progress. So, we've reduced death rate from heart disease by, I think, almost 70% since 1970. Death from breast cancer by about 45%. By the way, we should continue to make progress in those areas.
Yeah.
And we've made almost no progress in this area of osteoporosis. There's 2 patented drugs right now. All of Big Pharma has exited. And so it was very clear to me that there's a huge need, but also just an enormous business opportunity. And I totally agree with Gloria. I mean, since we've shipped, hearing from patients, frankly, just hearing from them when we announced the FDA approval was very inspiring.
Yes.
When we were struggling at one point to raise money, we launched a pre-order program. I figure the patients will help us. And we had 1,000 patients who were willing to pay it in advance and wait for this product because it was so important to them. And so we're all in.
Great. That's great.
I got to add, I just realized, so a lot of the hip fractures that happen in the middle of the night because they're running to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Actually, fall risk. So how do you get a fracture? You have poor bone density and bone quality, and you fall. And so if you're assessing for fall risk, having urge incontinence is a risk factor for falls.
Yeah.
Just in general.
There you go. Yep. So we've got a couple of minutes. I want to make sure we have time for a question or two from the audience. But I want to just quick fire. What are you most excited about in women's health as you look toward the future?
Oh, that this menopause, like older women, it is our time, right? Sorry for the young women and the men in the audience, but it's about time because our conditions have been sort of taboo, and suddenly we can talk about it. We can talk to our doctor. We can get the treatments. I think it's going to be huge.
Great. Gloria?
I think I see women taking more charge of themselves, and definitely the younger generation is starting to do their own research and not rely on the doctors as much, but that means they're taking control into their own hands. And so we are going to see more at-home devices. We are going to see more telehealth where they can get access easier. I think that's all good things.
Yeah, they're driving change.
Yeah.
The consumers are driving change.
Excellent. Excellent. So we've got some time. Oh, yes, please.
I don't know if this is on. Hold on.
It should be on.
Is it on?
Yeah, speak up a little bit more.
No problem.
There you go.
My question for both of you, I commend you on this work. I think these are both critically important issues for women older women. Delighted they are FDA approved devices. So the question next becomes, how do we get them paid for? How do we make this not so much of a burden on an individual? How do we get this into Medicare codes? How do we get insurance to cover these devices? Because the first thing was your genius in creating it, and thank you. The second will be access.
Yep.
Oh, I could answer that. Our device is Medicare covered. It is the hardest thing was even though it was Medicare covered, that doesn't mean we can bill for it. So we had to, just this year, we had to get accredited by Medicare ourselves so that we could actually bill for it. So
Yeah. And we are working on getting a code as a de novo device. There are no predicate codes. So we are right now applying for a HCPCS code, which is a DME code. And we plan to launch a reimbursed program in the second quarter, which will be covered by Medicare using RTM. So we're working on that. We know it's really important.
Great question too. Who's next?
Hi, I have a question about the awareness. How do we make the end consumers aware about these? And we did a study with some of the younger adults. I have the students here with me, where they reached out to the older adults, either directly or through a caregiver. We paired them, and they shared videos of these products. What we found out was many of the folks are not even aware about it. So the question is, how do we drive the direct-to-consumer awareness more so on the proactive side?
Yeah, this is a hard thing for startups, right? So we're super appreciative of the AgeTech Collaboratives that we can hear and be here and spread the word. You know, we are advertising. Our FDA approval got us a lot of PR coverage. We're Time Innovation of the Year. We're talking to doctors, so hopefully we can go through doctors. A lot of word of mouth, but yeah, that's our number one objective this year, really, to grow the businesses, to get the word out.
it is constant marketing, but that marketing is very expensive and femtech, and we're not well funded like a lot of other startups, so it is hard. And then Meta did something, so we both advertise on the Facebook Meta, and Meta stopped people from retargeting in February of last year, which made it very, very difficult to be cost effective to market.
Thank you. Next.
Hi. So I'm a physician, and I feel like we are late adopters in learning about these kind of new innovations in care. And I know you mentioned telemedicine. So are you using D2C telemedicine initiatives to get your product out there and, doctors to be able to prescribe through D2C?
Right. So so patient come to our website. Let's say they learn about it from Meta or through PR, and they order, and then they can go to their personal physician for prescription. The doctor can call it in, fax, order through the EMR. We also have a partnership with a telehealth company, so the patient can, it's a very modest cost, get a prescription. We are a partner of MIDI Health, so they prescribe to their patients, and we're basically trying to do more of that. The endocrinologists, who are the experts in osteoporosis, many of them, we've talked to some of them, but most patients are seeing their primary care doctor, and so that's very important for us to get to the information in front of them.
And since our product is over the counter as well as RX, I would say 95% of our sales is over the counter. Women are just spending out of the pocket. But since we just got Medicare accredited, we have added telehealth, and we're moving people towards that prescription.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. One more question?
Hi, Daniel Dudley, Danley Advisors. Really appreciate the talk. Amazing innovations, very important areas. One of the things that I think is a real challenge, especially in chronic conditions and women's health especially, is that a patient is reliant largely on that primary care provider to give them the advice, whereupon a specialist might be the only one who has that. So how do you feel like, to give the example that you just had, an endocrinologist will be the one who can help them with their osteoporosis, but they're not going to go to an endocrinologist. They're going to call up their PCP and say, hey, what am I supposed to do about this? How do you navigate that with like trying to outreach to doctors, knowing that, the patient in many cases, especially for women's health, where so much is put on the woman who is going to those doctors, how do you help them navigate this kind of like nightmarish mess of specialists and different type of physicians?
Well, a patient with osteopenia, so there's tens of millions of them. Most of them are not going to specialists unless they need sort of more powerful drugs. And so what we try to do is just make sure that those doctors are aware, the patients have materials that they can share with the doctor, and then we can take it from there on how to use the device, how to manage working with the device. So we don't expect the doctors to have to troubleshoot that in the same way they might with medication side effects. So we try to make it easy for those doctors.
I think we struggle a little bit with that because the gynecologists, which is the primary care for women, really don't want to deal with incontinence, so they'll send them out. So at first we were targeting all of them, and now we're trying to just focus on the urologists so that if they eventually get there, then they'll have good information.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Gloria, Laura, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks,
This is
Sally.
fascinating. I wish you continued tremendous success and let you be the leaders to bring along other female founders who are working and to solve women's health problems. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us.